Welcome to something a little different today. I'm going to be doing restoration on a Lima Class 31. Well, it's a very old restoration. It's actually photographs, but I'm sort of giving a guided talk through on what I did. In the header here, it's pretty much how I got it. There'll be a better photo in a second that'll show it a little bit better, but it was an utter mess. A child had it and they'd ripped the buffers off it. You can see the plastic tubes that were Evo stick glued onto the buffer beams. There was Evo stick glue everywhere. Glue had melted holes in the bodywork, and it was just generally rough and battered. As you can see here, it's very dirty underneath, and the buffer beams damaged and the tubes stuck onto it. You can see it's absolutely lashed with Evo stick. I think it were Evo stick glue. Whatever it was everywhere and causing everything liberally. Here's the body after I'd done basic sanding down on it, and I couldn't really strip paint because what I'd have needed to get what was on it off had damaged the plastic, so there's some plastic work in this rather than the normal working on die cast. It's quite a different project. Here's another slightly different view, and I basically there rubbed all the plastic off, the glue off, found out where damage is, scuffed it up for ready for paint, etc. And really just basic prep. As you can see, in the bottom front corner, the glue had completely melted the corner away, so I came up with a solution that you'll see in a sec, but there was a couple of areas on it like that where I had to patch up and stuff, and it was quite a rough old thing, to be honest. I think I gave about something like 15, about a tenner for it, I think it was. And when you work out, if it were in good condition, even at the time I'd have paid about 60 quid for it. And inside you can see a thin layer of plastic card laid in as a support to use for model filler over the top of it, because the model filler wouldn't have held on its own. I actually poly-cemented a thin layer of plastic card in it as a backing for the filler. And here we have the initial filler that's been put in, and basically taking the shape of it and filling in the gaps and bringing it back to where it should have been, really. And you can see I'm trying to preserve the detail on the front there. I had to scribe some of it back in, and there we are where I've sanded down. As you can see, there's cracks and you can see the big hole and stuff. So quite a taxing job, but it got there. In all, I think if I remember, it took me a few months to get from how it was initially to where I end up at the end, finishing, showing you. Quite a lot of things went on it, and sourcing bits and stuff like that. And here I've put it in the first layer of primer to check out my work so far. I actually painted it twice, which you'll see later in it. I think it might have been Tamiya White primer I was using there, but knowing me, more than likely it's cheap pound shop primer. In fact, it will have been, to be honest. I don't think I've ever bought Tamiya primer. Oh, hang on, I've had one tin, so it could well be Tamiya White primer. And there we have the front end. It's not perfect filling at the bottom corner, but as you'll see, I weren't over bothered about getting the shape back fully because of how I intended to model it eventually. It was going to be an in-work loco that worked hard for its living, and they got knocks and bangs on corners in freight yards, and because the class 31 was used for freight as well as passenger duties. And next up, it's gone into the blue. I've done some, there'll be a little bit on it later, but I've done some pre-shading before I laid the blue colour on. You can see it on panel lines, etc. You'll see a bit more of that technique later. It involves airbrushing black along the panel lines, and then when you put the colour on, the black shows through and it gives a slightly weathered look to things. And here we are at this point. I've repaired the buffer beams. You can see they've been sanded flat again. All the detail's been taken off because I'm putting on aftermarket detail. The buffers that are now on it, they actually came off a Hornby class 31, and they sprung buffers. They have little springs inside, so the buffers spring backwards and forwards. And they actually went on. I had to drill the holes for them to mount them, but they fit nice and snug, as can be seen here. They're a really nice fitment, thanks to eBay. Like, there's a wealth of model railway spurs out there, especially eBay. eBay's an absolute gold mine, because you get people that'll strip old locos down and sell them for spurs, and some will even get old and new locos and strip them for spurs, because they're worth more in parts than selling them as one unit, I suppose, sometimes. And coming up, let's have a look what's up next. Is just about to go on to it, and here you can see I've cut out the engine roof fan. It's the cooling fan for the locomotive. What a locomotive actually does, they have quite big diesel engines, and the diesel engines power electric motors, so they're known as a diesel electric. The actual diesel engine doesn't actually drive the wheels. It's used as a generator, if you will, to power electric motors. And the grills you see on the side are where the air goes in past the radiators, and the hole on the top is where the air comes out, forced out by a large fan. So in effect, it's like a vacuum cleaner drawing air in through. And here we have it stripped down, and the white filler area up the side is the body It's one of the very early models, and I wanted to make a later model, and the later models didn't have the side steps and water heating equipment and stuff on them, so I filled them areas in and cut bits off and stuff to make it the model of the locomotive I wanted. At this point all the buffer beam has been painted black as it would have been on the original, and there's bits of weathering, although it doesn't keep that because it ends up just moving some out there. It ends up repainted, and if you look at the centre screen and the two side screens at the front, there's little white cubes. Them are windscreen washers, and it didn't have them moulded on the model, so I made them out of plastic card. It's a detail you'd notice if you know the locomotives, and it wasn't present, so I thought to give it the real look they have to be there, so they were manufactured out, well, fabricated I suppose is the correct word, and mounted onto the windows. And also, if you look, there's two scribe lines about halfway down the body coming round the corners. What that represents is there used to be a raised line all around the body, and they actually cut it out and welded a sheet of flat steel in, and on the real locomotives you could actually see it. And then I've put some extra detail on the buffer beam, such as air cables, vacuum cables, electric connections that have been, well, it wouldn't have been steam heat on this model, I think it was electric heat on this, so there's no steam mounting, well, what is it they call it, steam mounting tube, for want of a better word, or pipe, hose, whatever you want to call it. And in a sec we'll be going on to the next. Hey, smarter than the average bird, Yogi. Anyway, there we are. Again, back to... and it is more or less the earlier photo, except it shows it with more gear on and the window window washers. I've still not got round, and now it's it's more or less finished, but I've still not got round to putting the headcode box right. That'll be done, and the only two things left on it now are the headcode box and its tops number, they used to call them, basically a British Railways registration number for it. And eventually I may well put this over and make lights and sound work. I've got a Class 47, I've already done that too. It's got lighting and sound. And here's another view of all the bodywork I've filled in to convert it to the later model. And it's, at this point, if you look at the under chassis, the bogies as they're called, I've weathered them, cleaned them up, so once the body's right they'll look more in place. This one was taken before I'd weathered the bogies, But if you look, I'm just going round, finding bits of imperfections with filler, filling them and then sanding them to make it look a lot better. And there's still no windows in it if you look at it. And here was the roof before I cut the fan unit out. As you can see, it's actually a good moulding and would have been great painted, but in the future I'm thinking of installing sound and lights and everything, so that'll be a hole for the speaker, and the speaker can be hidden behind the fan, because there'll be there is a fan, it's mounted in it now. It's not at that point, there's just the mesh grill on top, and at this point, as you can see, I'm doing pre-shading again. I've sprayed on round all the panel lines on the roof and side grills, and here I've started spraying on the yellow end, the high visibility marker yellow, so the trains could be seen. And there's a picture somewhere, I'll see it in a bit, where I've actually put the coupling on. And here it's gone into the rail blue, the basic British Rail corporate blue. And I think it was a nice colour. I mean, when I lived through it, I did actually work for British Railways, and my dad did. My dad worked from the late 60s through 70s to 80s. I think he may have just managed, no, he didn't manage into 90s. And I worked for him for about 3 years. Anyway, here you can see the coupling's gone on. The coupling shackle. And that's pretty much all the buffer beam fitted out. To look rather pleasing if you look at it. It's also been weathered, although the photos in a while will show considerably nicer weathering. I work on the less is more sort of thing. Like, sometimes when you look at stuff close up, it looks far worse than it actually does if you look at something further away, like you would with a model. And here we have the weathering done up the sides, and the bogies are weathered, and the roof's got some weathering, some degree of weathering on. It'll probably get more in the future. And the last two pictures are pretty much where I'm up to with it so far. And there's only really the number and the headcode number and the cab number to put on it, and that'll finish the job off. But it's quite a sweet build from what I started with. As you can see, the glass is also in as well, and coming up next is a photo of it with another one I've done, a class 47, and that one I may show later, but this one has had full sound and full lighting put in. It's got forwards lighting, reverse lighting, horns, the air brakes, the engine sounds, the start up, the shutdown. It's got just about every sound they made on it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this for a change from the diecast cars. It was just something I had from an old folders on Facebook. Anyway, if you've enjoyed, please subscribe, even better. Press the bell icon for notifications, and tatty bye.